All right, and welcome to this episode of Better Call Saul. And today we're going to talk about commissions. Here with Rachael Real and I is Saul Klein. Hey, Saul.
Hey, how's it going, Jennifer? Good to see you.
Good.
Rachel?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. All right, so in Inman there was this article from Mike Delpret. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, Delpret. He's I think a teacher in Colorado, a college teacher. People follow him. He's got a lot of information on real estate, so pretty reputable.
Is he
authoritative guy
too?
Is he what?
Is he an economist too, or no?
I'm not sure what his background. I know he's a college professor, and
Okay.
I never saw his name until like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, but he's like pretty engaged. So he's a tech entrepreneur and a global business advisor. But he's got like this fascination with real estate and stuff. But he had an article about how big tech is coming for your commission. So,
Yeah, see, that's an old comment. I mean, we've been saying that for the last 10 years. And
right.
We know Zillow has been coming after it, and people have been talking about this for a long time. So when I read that in Inman by Michael, it didn't surprise me at all because I have that site. I got slides like that talk about how much money is coming into the industry and about commissions, like go back like 6, 7 years. So
Right.
Everybody's kind of been talking about this for a while.
Right.
And,
But he did in the article, he did talk about Zillow, Compass, and what was the Open Door?
They were in primarily an iBuyer, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I think what a lot of people don't understand about Zillow is that most of their money was made and is continuing to be made on like their Premier Agent platform.
Yeah, they make their money from real estate agents.
Right. So stop that.
Well, that's another subject though, right? It's actually related to antitrust. Right.
Okay.
So we can talk about that. So the first thing is nobody in real estate wants to talk about commissions.
We do.
Right. Nobody else does. They don't want to because they're afraid because they've been told somewhere that it's illegal.
Right.
You can't talk about commissions. Well, the fact is it's not illegal.
Not illegal.
And you can talk about commissions all you want. You have to be careful that you're not involved in conspiracy. You have to make sure you're not involved in boycott. It's telling people not to go. There's a number of issues, and antitrust violations are per se for the most part, which means if they accuse you, you're guilty until you prove otherwise. And so the first case, antitrust case, was against like in Maryland somewhere. And I believe a couple of people went to jail for that.
Wow.
Right? It was conspiracy. It was like, person's offering a reduced commission. Let's not show their properties, right? A group boycott. And so, it's actually big penalty. So what the real estate industry did, knowing our agents and how they work, rather than say, well, there are just certain circumstances where you can talk about commission, they just said, you can't talk about commission.
Well, I mean, I think most of that did come from the brokers because it's very
easy to fall off that slippery slope when you're discussing it in a group setting.
Well, it actually came from the attorneys to the brokers and to the real estate educators because everybody taught this.
But to your point, Saul, it's probably mostly because we're not employees.
Well, that's another thing. But just this whole idea of antitrust, that you can get accused of it, and that the penalties can be like the Gray Bar Motel, right? That you can actually go to jail for certain things. That's said to us as an industry and recommended by NAR and our state association. Don't talk about commissions because you're right, Rachel. It's a slippery slope. It's not that it's illegal.
Right.
It's a slippery
slope.
Just
that most people don't know where to draw the line into to stopping that discussion in a group setting.
So how does being a premier agent at Zillow equal reduced commission for me, the agent?
Well, so to talk about Zillow a little bit, their primary source of revenue was charging fees for exposure and for leads.
Right.
And they still do that.
Yes.
But now they're licensed as a real estate broker. That's another story why they did that. Now they're licensed as a real estate broker in every state. So they have every right to commissions.
Yeah.
Because they are a real estate broker.
Right.
Now let's talk in general what's been happening with real estate. Here's the phrase you'll hear, and that is that real estate commissions are being compressed.
Yes.
That's what you hear. There's compression. Well, why? There's a number of reasons. One is that the real estate agent's job has changed since the introduction of technology. So now probably a buyer has seen more homes when they come to an agent than they maybe saw 25 years ago, right? They already come more prepared. They come with more information. There's more automated. There's more that the consumer can do for themselves. And yet real estate commissions haven't been reduced. They're still pretty much the same. So you got people like the Department of Justice saying what I just said. Wait a minute.
Right.
You know, it takes shorter period of time. People find properties on their own.
Oh my God, but their anxiety level compared to 25 years ago.
That's our comeback as realtors. I'm just telling you what the what people say.
What their position, what their position is.
What their position is on this. Yeah. And so what Zillow, they earn most of their money from fees to agents, and now it's still the same, but they're a brokerage firm. And so they're right to fit into that. And because there's this overall compression on commissions, and because of the position that some of these portals are in, they can advocate for lower commissions, because you think about it, agents are always willing to take less commission. Now they'll argue, but they always are, because they make referral fees all the time.
Right.
And so you're really taking less commission.
Right.
For what? For the opportunity to do the business. So for one thing, real estate agents always, you know, if they're asked, will take to another real estate agent. So Zillow is a real estate broker.
Right.
Right.
And so as I see them evolving their commission structure, it doesn't surprise me, or wouldn't surprise me if a discount was part of what they negotiate. And then to an agent, right there, an agent to an agent kind of thing.
Well, that's how a lot of, there are a lot of like internet sites or whatever that are like, hey, they have big money to advertise to get the buyers or the sellers there. And it's like, okay, well, if you use one of our agents, then they will list it for, you know, 1% or a fee or whatever it is. And so then as an agent, if you want to be a part of that, then you're making that agreement, which is generally reduced from what you would normally charge.
Happens all the time. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I made some notes on antitrust. Let's see. Can you talk about it? The answer is yes. But if you don't know very much about it, I'd kind of stay away from the conversation. Right. But I don't have any problem. I love to talk about it. And they also say if you're in a room where people start talking about commissions, you're better off to get up and walk out of the room. Right. Because if those people get charged, and you'll get charged, and at least you can say, I got up and walked out of the room. Right. So,
I mean, I don't think it's bad advice, but I think the distinction, because the distinction, if you're not able to make the distinction, there's one thing about talking about it. It's totally different than colluding.
Yeah, it is. But now per se, you have to prove that you weren't colluding. Yeah. And that's the big fear, right? Is when they accuse you, how do you defend yourself? And the penalties can be great.
Right.
And
well, all it takes is one person.
Yeah,
all it takes is one person in that group of people, if you're in a room, that feels like the conversation has gone off the rails. And now all of a sudden you've got this whole group of people that now have to defend themselves against that.
Think about something like group boycott, which is a violation of the NA. Right? People talk about boycott. We see it all the time about boycotting Zillow or any of these, right? So let's not use them all together.
But if there's a boycott, because we are allowed, like, let's say the seller said, I don't want anybody from ABC Realty to show my property. That's allowed.
Sure. If the seller writes, if the seller puts that, it's allowed. I would ask the seller to put that in writing for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sign it, have it notarized, delivered by an attorney.
Yeah. Something like that.
But like I feel like I have seen where companies are saying, we don't let these other, Rachel, we were talking about this.
You and I talked about it, right?
Yeah. They won't let other companies show the properties or represent a buyer. And that's just from the company. That's not the seller saying it.
Right. The company can't do that. The only direction you can take in that respect is from the seller. And like Saul mentioned, you'd want to get that in writing and keep it in your file and make sure that that seller signs off on that. A brokerage cannot prevent another brokerage from coming in and saying, you can't show my properties, you can't sell my properties, we're not going to work together.
Yeah, but what we're seeing now is as a possible strategy is certain brokerages that have a lot of market share coming together to sell the properties inside of those brokerages.
Using the private network and often in most circumstances, which feels like colluding. Right.
I mean, remember, per se, that doesn't mean that they can't get accused of this and have to pay millions of dollars to prove that they weren't.
To get out of it, right. And if they've got a lot of money, the chances of that happening are more than if I got accused of it and don't have a whole lot of money to defend myself.
And so know that the FTC and the DOJ are looking really hard at the real estate industry right now, right? They're actually suing the National Association of Realtors, Antitrust. And so, we can't think that they're not watching.
Right.
So they're watching, they're paying attention. They, the Department of Justice, the Federal Trade Commission, and these antitrust laws have been around for a while. I can't remember the year, like in the late 60s, early 70s, where the Department of Justice, before that, they didn't go after personal service businesses. Like antitrust did, who fell into antitrust? Railroads, right? Big companies, but not real estate. Well, once they started going after service businesses, they started coming.
The argument is, like you said, the argument is that because of technology, the transaction, and this is the same argument that Compass is using in their plan to pay the agents less. The transaction itself is more efficient. You can do a lot more. Thus, per transaction, you should make less. But I just don't think that that's true.
Well, see, again, what they're saying is the consumer's demanding this. We're not doing this because we want to do it. We're doing this because this is what consumers want. They want to pay less, right?
It's a reaction to what's happening in the industry and as a whole.
And in general, everything, right? Look at the driving consumer demands: speed, convenience, choice.
But this is just to make a case for getting paid, like by the time it takes to do the thing, right? Instead of like or some kind of combination of like a percentage plus the time. And that's something that you've tried before, Saul, and the customers were like, no, we don't want that.
That's true. Again, that was like 30 years ago. So who knows what the customer would do again, right? Do right now.
Right.
So there are a lot of different people trying different business models right now, because really, again, look at it. The commission hasn't changed from before very much. And the amount of work is really
because it's a percentage, right? And then,
well, that's the other thing, right? As the values go up, right? And we know this and how that works, but the values go up, you get paid a share now, a certain percentage of that. And people are saying it's just outrageous, right? So if I have a big house, why should I pay $100,000 in real estate commission? Well, we know the answer. Part of the answer is the way realtors are employed. Right? Because they're independent contractors, and because there typically is no contract used with the buyer. What realtors do is they work for free 9 times out of 10. And then when they hit the 10th one and they get paid, then they got to somehow make up for the 9 where they didn't get paid.
Right. But if that all changes, and I feel like we talk about this almost every time. I mean, that could change. And then I think then we pay, basically selling a house or buying a house is like it's a project, right? And here's the fee for the project. And
well, Jen, you know what that would require though?
Oh my God, yes. I do. Why don't you tell us, Rachel?
That would require a buyer agency agreement.
Oh my God.
To be done by every single agent who's working with a buyer. What? Yeah, that would require that.
So imagine.
I mean, not that it's not already required, but 9 times out of 10, most agents don't have them. I mean, I've spoken with managing brokers about, issues that have come up, and their response is, well, most people don't get those. I go, you're a managing broker. You should be getting those.
I also think it would require a higher level of understanding about the business, period, about sales, about what it takes to get it done. What are the activities associated that bring the highest value to the customer? I mean,
think about what's in all this
crap.
And think about what's in those buyer agency agreements. By nature, you have to educate your client more when you're using a buyer agency agreement, because you have to go through that with them and explain how all of these things affect them.
All of the things
I will tell you that
exactly.
Well, I was just going to say, no one else explains it. They look at you like you have a deer, like you're a deer in the headlights. But quite honestly, I mean, I've had clients that have come to me and said, you know what, no one else has explained this.
But it would
us.
Also,
we had no idea that this was even an option, or that this is something we should be discussing.
That's part of one of the lawsuits.
Absolutely.
Right. On the seller side, it also requires you to understand what is the cost it takes for a listing. How much does it cost you to take a listing? Right. Based on your business model, what is the percent of profit that you want to make on each job, right? Like each job, and to run it like a business.
Right.
What are your expenses? What are your things? And I just don't think that we don't do a good job as yet until I'm the Czarina. We do not do a good job of like having people understand that they don't know. And that's why they take less, because they don't realize by the time they do that, they don't even know what it costs them to run a buyer around.
Right.
But,
right.
Yeah. And it costs more these days, but it's always.
Well, no kid. I just filled my car up for the second time in a week.
I'd be like, you pick me up. This is your house.
I have never spent more time in my car than I have this week.
Yeah. So that's another thing to think about. It. People probably show less properties than they used to.
Right.
Right. So that would be, there's all kinds of reasons why the commission should come down, and yet it doesn't. And that's why the DOJ is involved, because they think it's good.
And I would argue that right now, if I take in a balanced normal market, if I have a buyer, we look at, okay, here's houses that have come up during the week. Let's go out Saturday morning. We'll look at a bunch. Right now, one house comes up on a Monday. We have to drive out to go see it. Another house comes up on a Tuesday. We got to drive out and go see it. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Every single day, because you don't have any time to wait from Monday to Saturday to go see those properties. But I would argue I'm spending more time with a buyer right now than I normally do.
Yeah, you are. And that's why it should be like, consider as a business model, charging
absolutely
like a flat fee based on the hours that you think it's going to take. And then like every other business, like if you're like every other business, you bid the job, and that's what it is, right? Like in a listing, it's taking less. It's costing less to market a listing than it was before. So it makes sense to me that they wouldn't pay as much as they did 4 years ago, or even in 2010.
Or 10 years ago.
I mean, in 2010, we should have been making a lot of money per listing because it was like impossible to find a buyer, right?
Right. Well, and that would be hard too, because almost if you look at it from a consumer standpoint, they don't understand how these things change for us over the years.
The realtors don't understand. How could they understand?
Well, how would right? So how does it, if the consumer doesn't understand how these things are going to change and over the span of time, you got a seller's market to a buyer's market. If these things are constantly going to change, they're going to have to count on the agent to be able to explain that to a consumer and help them understand why it might have cost this at one time, now it costs this, and how it always changes. I think that's the challenge.
I think there's just so many other things that have to change in order to make that happen.
Oh, absolutely. And none of them will change overnight.
So
it's going to be a longer term project.
The job of a real estate professional is going to become more consultative.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
It's all going, right?
I think it should be anyway. We're not salespeople.
And so,
as much as I try, I can't sell you a house.
Yeah,
I can't make you love it.
That's right. All you can do is shut. But again, most realtors, most people, real estate professionals, we'll call them, really don't understand them. And typically they're not in the business long enough to be through multiple cycles.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So I'm going to read you.
You know what would solve this? An apprentice program.
What? That'd be kind of fun, wouldn't it? I'm going to read a quote.
All three of us are going to run it.
Yeah. There's a 1995 quote from Bill Gates in the book, The Road Ahead. Now, 1995 is when the portals first started coming out, right?
The portals.
Realtor.com, Home Advisor, right? It's pre-Zillow. Zillow's a second generation portal. So the first generation portals, 1995, they were being built. Here's what Bill Gates says in his book. In 1995, here's what he's saying.
Okay.
If you put your house on the market, you'll be able to describe it fully and include photographs, videos, floor plans, tax records, utility and repair bills, even a little mood music. The chances that a potential buyer for your house will see your ad are improved because the information highway will make it easy for anyone to look up. Next paragraph. The whole system of real estate agencies and commissions may be changed by the principals having direct access to so much information. Bill Gates, 1995.
Right. It's 100% true.
Now, it took a long time. 1995.
Right. Yeah, it's a long time.
That's crazy. The only thing we're missing is being able to scratch and sniff and smell the house.
Right.
That's probably coming.
It's coming. And the truth about the house, right? Like well, it will come with the blockchain. You'll get the actual truth about the house because everything will be on the blockchain.
Yeah, be immutable records. Right?
That's crazy.
So here's another thing. So we're kind of getting away from the commission thing, but if you do have blockchain and you do collect information and it goes into some real estate blockchain, then you could actually get credit for that if that information is used anywhere else. And so if we got something like this and I put a picture of a property in and then you get lazy as an agent, you decide to use my picture when you list the house, right? Then we can tell, right? Yep. And so I'll know you're using my photo.
Well,
so,
hey, if your pictures are good, I'll pay you. It's fine.
Yeah, well, that's
because there's a cost to me going out there. If gas is,
well, there not just saying there's anything wrong with it.
Yeah.
Right. So now, as a real estate professional, all you're going to do is go around the neighborhood and take pictures for 10 years. I mean, you can carve out a niche. Remember, we're talking about niches. Yeah. And I'm just going to I'm going to drive around. I'm going to learn stuff about my neighborhood. And then if I go on a listing appointment, I'm going to be able to show people all these, the potential seller, all these things that nobody else can show.
There is an argument to be made, though, that maybe the cost of a listing is higher than it used to be also, because these technologies, they cost money. So like the actual hard cost,
The marketing costs less. How many people, I don't know this, how many people still run classified ads in the newspaper?
Right.
One or two, the same ones that fax the offer.
Display ads.
Right. I mean, display ads. Right. Homes and Land magazine. Right.
And magazine, Homes magazine, and there are a whole bunch of these things. People would
and those were expensive. Now you can do it online for 5 cents a click or whatever it might be, and you set a budget for that, and you're good to go.
Except that as things become like more decentralized, it's going to be like how. Okay, before you really just had the one for TV. It was like you could get cable or you could not get cable, or you could get the dish.
Or you could steal it from your neighbor.
Right. But now you have to, if you want TV, you have to subscribe to 1,000 different streaming services, which all have a fee associated with them.
All subscription.
They're all subscription based. And people think they're paying less. And they're actually,
they might be paying more.
But some people are paying a lot more. So I think it's kind of the same thing here. It's like, before it was a little bit easier to market, even when the internet first came out, because there was just a couple of places. But now everybody wants to be their own. And they're like, well, if you want to market here to our customers, you have to pay us a fee.
Right.
Well, there's still many places, even Zillow, they don't charge, do they? You can put your listing up on Zillow.
Well, they're going to change. I imagine.
It depends.
I imagine that because they're making so much money off this premier agent, there will be, I'm sure there's conversations about, well,
there might be, but look what you sacrifice traffic and eyeballs if you don't have a complete set of data. Yeah. And so if I start taking data away from my site, that's going to take eyeballs away from my site too. So maybe that's their plan, but I'm not sure.
But maybe charging is.
Well, maybe charging, but again, if I want eyeballs and I'm going to sell advertising around my site, I make money from my agents providing leads. But then if I can sell advertising, but then if I take eyeballs away because I take listings off the site, then maybe I don't know what direction they're going to take. That would surprise me if they charge.
We've already seen some listings be removed from Zillow. So for instance, where I'm at, if you have a rental listing as an agent, that rental listing no longer populates to Zillow. So they've already removed some of those.
That's just the broker choice, though, right?
No. I don't know if it comes from the board level or if it comes from the state level, but I know that at some point, it was probably, I don't know, I'm going to say around a year ago or so, no longer will Zillow populate any rental listings. And I don't know if it's just by...
No longer will the MLS offer them to them. Is that what you mean? They'd take them.
I'm going to have to look into it because I know that it was...
I remember that changing. I think it was
it was a couple of states ago. Might have been 2 years ago. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And I can't, at least in California, as bad as California is, I can't see the state telling brokers where they can advertise.
No, and it might be it might have been a Zillow thing because they wanted to. Right. I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was Zillow's policy to not allow that, so that if somebody was listing a rental, they had to now pay Zillow that was a certain amount of money per day or per week to have that listing on there.
That was also before it became a brokerage, I believe.
I want to say it was close to around the same time.
So I wonder if something, there's something associated with that.
Some strategy with that, right?
Because the rule, at least the rule in California, is you can't advertise another broker's listing without the broker's permission.
Right.
Right. So now if I'm taking rental, I got to get the other, right? So who knows? It might create a conflict.
Yeah. How do iBuyers like Open Door and other things and other places reduce agent commission? Same thing, right?
And do they need an agent in all cases? And do they represent institutional buyers where they don't have to worry about the buying side. So they're just going out and buying for inventory.
I think they need the agents to find the inventory many times. The amount of inventory that they're looking for.
But remember, there are a lot of big institutional buyers out there. Just go to banks and they buy up 10,000 foreclosed, right? The big marketplace, and they're buying these homes and they're buying them with the intention of holding them, not flipping them.
Right.
Because I read an article the other day, and we've known this for a while. The first-time home buyers kind of getting priced out of the marketplace because all this stuff's getting bought up.
Yeah. And the rents are so high that they can't save enough money to get something else.
Yeah, they have to move. They have to move to a state where it costs less to live. So, but let's go back to antitrust, right? We can all talk about it. We can have conversations about it. It's more dangerous if we're all in the same room together. It's more dangerous if we're members of the same MLS or the same association of realtors, right? There's all these different levels of how dangerous it can be, but it is dangerous. If you're not careful about it, you don't have knowledge about it, which is why, to me, it's a cop-out, because you should learn about it. But it's why people say, well, I'm just going to not pay. We're not going to talk about it. I think you're
exactly right. Yeah. It's ridiculous.
I think it's actually collusion not to.
Right. I agree.
Say to one another, let's not talk about commission. Let's not talk about commission. So no kidding.
Leave it status quo and don't talk about
down.
Right.
So we're actually colluding not to talk about commission.
Everybody's fired.
Yeah. Everybody's going to jail.
There really will be realtor jail then.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's crazy. I think, what are some final thoughts? I think that we all agree that commission compression is coming. And are we saying that it's because of it's more efficient to do deals and you could do more?
That's one point. So more technology, making it easier. And
it just feels harder.
Well, and
I was going to say some things are easier, but some things are much harder.
And more consumer awareness.
Right. But you have to manage expectations of your consumers now that they have all this information. They don't know what to do with it, or they think they're looking at legitimate websites for accurate data, and they're not. They're
feel
looking
like
at something that's old and outdated.
If we end up in an employee model, they should seriously consider, like, if you have a psychology degree or if you want to go back to school for a psychology degree, they'll pay for it, or you get like some paid more, something like that.
You need something, because trying to manage
something.
Right. Being able to manage the expectations of sellers and buyers in this market and within the industry just in general is very difficult.
Yeah. And how to
the more
communicate
information
with others.
they have, the more dangerous they get.
Yep.
Well, that's true, because they don't kind of get the whole thing, because it is not all that easy, right? There's a lot of pieces to this. And
there's a lot of pieces that you're the one putting the puzzle together for them. They just got all the pieces and they think they've got everything, but their pieces are all in the wrong place.
What I've been telling realtors for years is your job is to put the information into context.
Yes.
Because people know all about real estate maybe, but they don't have it in the context of their life.
Absolutely.
In the context of the community. So my job as a realtor is to take, well, this is for sale, it's 2-bedroom, 3-bath, and to put that into the context of my buyer's life. You know, here's how much money you're making, here's what your plans are, here's how many kids you have, you know, how important is your house to you. So the realtor's job, the real estate professional, take that, the information you get about what's available for sale, and then try to put it in the context of that person's life.
And I think this requires a consultative approach to our job. It requires people to, as part of that, to listen, to understand the market, and to be like, how would one learn how to do that if it doesn't come naturally, or if they don't know?
You mean to be a consultant?
Yes.
Let me see if I can did I ever show you this book? It's called Secrets of a Lucrative Real Estate Career.
Boom.
Right. It is a classic. And
it should be green,
Charles
not blue.
Years ago. But it's about doing consulting for your real estate business. And when I was I was one of the people that formed something called California Association of Buyers Agents. There was another group in Massachusetts. They were the Massachusetts Association of Buyers Agents. And we got together, and this was a book that everybody read at the time, because it was about consulting in the real estate business. It's a long book.
Is that on Audible?
Charging it. It's written too long ago to be on Audible. It's only 270 pages long. I don't think they made tape recorders when this book was published.
I need the Cliff Notes.
Right.
Oh, Cliff Notes. You know, Cliff Notes are great. I got Cliff Notes on the Old Testament and the New Testament ones. Not that I didn't read them, but I thought Cliff Notes. This will be great.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay. I agree. I think Rachel, you agree too, like to become more consultative and really think about and really
you've got to learn these things.
Yes.
You've got to plug into continue. I don't want to say continuing ed because we all know what continuing ed means, which just means sitting on your computer hitting a space bar so they know you're alive. Really plugging into learning about all the different facets of real estate, how it affects your clients, how to do a deep dive on property taxes. It's amazing what you can learn and what you can find out and how you can explain that to your clients better if you take something very specific and just do a deep dive on it.
Well, and I think also just running this is a business, like you Absolutely. Are self-employed. This is your business. And what do business owners know? They have a profit and loss statement. They usually have a balance sheet. Like what do they know what the profitability of each customer is and which each product is. And just like knowing this information, what does it cost to take a listing? What does it cost to have a buyer? Like know this crap.
Yeah. So we used to say real estate's an amateur business.
Ugh.
Right? That's the way I used to describe it. It's an amateur business.
Agreed.
No, it's an amateur because most people that get into real estate don't know how to manage a business.
Well, and they get out 3 years later.
Right. So it's an amateur.
Nor do they take the time to actually learn what real estate actually is and all the bits and pieces and moving parts.
Because you're right that if you keep the data, if you keep track of everything, then you're going to have a much better knowledge of what takes place, what's profitable, what's not profitable, where you're wasting your money, where you're spending your money under a good pretense. You don't know that unless you're keeping track of things. And so, so you got to be a business person. So, sales, but you got to either you keep track or you turn that over to somebody to keep track of where you're spending your money and where your income's coming in. And then you can analyze and you can become better at your business. But if you don't do that, you're like guessing every day.
Right. Yeah.
So I prefer to know. I ever tell you, so the relationship I could tell you how much money was in my pocket based on looking at Quicken. I used Quicken back then, right? Individual. And so I could tell you how much money was in my pocket, right? Because I kept such track. And so I determined one time I used to get a lot of heartburn. And so I determined, I might've told you the story. One day I made a correlation. I know that when I looked and I saw that I bought a lot of pizza. In the months where I bought a lot of pizza, I bought more Mylanta.
Tums.
More Tums. Right. Now, this actually was just really aha moment where it just kind of stood right out.
Yeah.
Right.
$100 for pizza and $30 for antacid. So now I would have never seen that if it weren't for the data.
Yeah.
So looking at analyzing the data, even if you don't know what you're doing at first, you'll start to see things that fit together.
But I think like I hear a lot from agents that they feel overwhelmed. They feel like they work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know how, if they're only selling 5 houses, but that's a different story. So if you really want like a better work-life balance, you have to know what activities are the most profitable so that you can decide if you are going to continue to focus on those, or if you're going to continue to focus on things that are not profitable. But without tracking it, you will have no idea and you're just be a Pop-Tart.
Well, especially then when you start getting into the middle of commission compression.
Yes.
Right.
So even more do you need to know this information.
Yep.
As we move into the future. Right?
Agreed.
Right.
And of course you can't talk about commissions, right? So you really
can.
I know you can, right? But be careful when you do.
Don't collude.
Right.
Intent is 9/10 of the law or something, right? Hey, Rachel, any final thoughts?
No, I think that, again, discussing it is important. Knowing how you can discuss it so that you're not getting yourself in trouble is important, but just being aware of what's coming and how to, as an agent, adjust your business, adjust the way you approach clients one way or the other. You use a buyer's agent agreement buyer agent agreement for your buyers, and start learning the scripts and the ways to explain to your clients how these things affect them.
Right.
We should all be doing it anyway, but honestly, it's a huge thing.
Do better.
We need more transparency.
Yes.
Right. Do better.
If people have a referral for you in Chicago or they have a question, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me is by cell phone at 630-542-8688 or via email at rreal@dealwithreal.com.
Awesome. And Saul, for the, what's that quote? Context?
Text without context is pretext. Is that the one you're thinking of?
That's the one I'm thinking
That's the
of.
one.
Text without context is pretext. And so create a context for listing and selling. And here's one more thing on antitrust. Don't use any of those lame excuses that people use about commissions, like my broker won't let me charge. The MLS doesn't allow us to charge, right? You have to be real careful about that. Now, speaking of MLSs, I learned today for the first time, and it's always fun to learn new things. There's actually an MLS in this country that charges you a percentage of every deal you close. So not all, yeah, that really surprised me. Because everyone I've ever been associated with, you pay, you know, to put their.
Do they also pay a fee every year?
Yeah, they pay to belong to their MLS, and then they pay some fee because somebody
MLS
posted in a group that she had to pay like $900. She sold an $785.
Jesus.
Yeah, and I asked a bunch of the association executives that I know, and they don't do it. Most of them don't do it, but this one is a big one, and it surprised me they do it. And so there's a whole nother piece. That's a commission in my right. That if they MLS gets a piece of what you sell, I almost wonder if that's legal. Right, because you can't pay in my state,
and you can't pay an unlicensed individual.
You can't pay an unlicensed individual or company. You can't pay.
Right.
So if an MLS is accepting some kind of fee based on
the sale of the property,
to me that seems like a commission.
Yeah,
they better not talk about it though.
It does seem like a
commission.
Don't
talk about it. It'll go away if you don't talk about it.
Plus, they probably have that 3-way agreement where they're required to join it.
No, this is actually a broker-owned MLS, big MLS in a big city.
Wow.
Put them on blast. So no, but if people want some additional context, they want to learn more about what they can do to protect themselves. What is the best way to get a hold of you, and where can they find some information?
So you can go to the dataadvocate.com. There's lots of different information there. We've got some real interesting stuff on antitrust. As a matter of fact, when the Department of Justice came down with their decision and their settlement with NAR in 2008, we were actually, my company was an expert witness in that. And then John Riley and I took the entire settlement and did videos of them. So if you want to know VOW, IDX, we've sat down and discussed the whole thing. So that's the dataadvocate.com. And if you want to send me an email, if you have a question, Saul@bettercallsaul.realtor, and I return all my emails. So you got a deeper question you want to talk about, just send me an email.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.